tao sulod bay. Alam, mga tao sa Sibmore. Jesus. Sa kuan ba? Sa eskwelahan ba?
An earthquake of magnitude 7.8 struck the Mindanao region in the southern Philippines on Monday, killing dozens of people and triggering scenes of panic as buildings collapsed and emergency sirens blared in parts of the archipelago. The quake struck around 7:37 a.m. local time at a depth of about 35 kilometers, 21.7 miles. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, said, adding that the tremors were notable. At least 37 people were killed, and authorities were still working to verify the number of people injured, said Diego Agustin Mariano, deputy spokesperson for the Civil Defense Office, on Tuesday morning. The Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan are situated in the so-called Ring of Fire, an arc of fault lines circling the Pacific Basin that is prone to frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Just last year, the deadliest quake to hit the Philippines in more than a decade ripped through the nation, killing at least 74 people on the central island of Cebu. The quake on Monday hit off the shores near General Santos City in Sarangani Province, the southernmost tip of the Mindanao Island. The country's seismology agency, Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, said as many as 138 aftershocks occurred after the initial earthquake, according to the seismology agency. Authorities warned of more aftershocks near the epicenter of the quake. Photos from the local information office in General Santos City, which is where about 720,000 people reside, showed convenience stores crumbling and sheets of concrete layered on top of each other. Social media videos showed dozens of terrified elementary school children crouching down outdoors as the ground beneath them swayed violently in the province of Davao Occidental, after the quake hit when public schools started the new academic year. Other footage showed a high school campus roof, which had fallen while pupils lined up outside the school's sports field in Davao del Sur. No injuries were reported in both incidents. One academic official in General Santos City recalled trying to find cover under a table in a university building. I had to duck and shelter myself under the table, the president of Notre Dame of Dadiangas University told Reuters. Within Davao City, more than 100 students attending morning flag-raising ceremonies sustained bruises and others fainted in panic. A regional emergency official, Ednar Dayang told the Associated Press. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he has directed all relevant government agencies to act immediately, to evacuate residents and start rescue work. To our kababayans, countrymen, in the affected provinces, please heed the tsunami warning. Move to higher ground now. Do not wait. Your life is more important than anything left behind, he said in a statement. Benji Ancheta, police chief of Alabel Town in Sarangani in the Philippines, told Reuters that the police building had some cracks immediately after the quake, which occurred during their flag-raising ceremony. Ancheta said there were no immediate reports of casualties, but some people fainted following the strong tremor. This is the strongest earthquake we've experienced, Ancheta told Reuters by phone. The quake triggered tsunami warnings in the wider region, with smaller waves were recorded in Indonesia, Palau, and southern Japan, the Associated Press said. No tsunami threat has been detected in Hawaii, according to the National Weather Service. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said the threat had largely passed about 5 hours after the quake struck, but it still urged people to stay alert and to heed warnings from local authorities as sea levels may fluctuate. Meanwhile, rescuers continued their search of damaged and collapsed buildings in General Santos City and the surrounding area on Tuesday, a day after the strongest earthquake to hit the Philippines this year killed 37 people and displaced around 20,000. The Office of Civil Defense said only 4 people were still considered missing on official records in the southern provinces of Mindanao, but it said that several collapsed and heavily damaged buildings still required thorough searches for possible survivors or casualties. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. deployed top defense mitigation officials from Manila to help oversee search and rescue operations. They were also charged with helping distribute food and construction materials to quake victims and assessing damage to bridges, roads, and other infrastructure. Authorities on Tuesday increased the confirmed death toll to 37, saying that nearly 500 people were injured. More than 20,000 were displaced, at least temporarily, with most fleeing to emergency shelters. Monday's magnitude 7.8 quake briefly triggered a tsunami warning, forcing many people to leave coastal homes, although ultimately only small waves of up to 1.4 meters, 4.6 feet, above tide level hit the shoreline. Smaller waves were registered as far away as Indonesia, Palau, and southern Japan. The epicenter was just off the southern coast of Mindanao, the country's second most populous island, near the port of General Santos City. In General Santos, a port city of around 700,000 people known as the tuna capital of the Philippines, at least 13 people were killed in collapsed buildings or as a result of falling debris. Slightly to the south, even nearer the epicenter in the mountainside town of Glan, a landslide buried several houses. Rafaelito Alejandro of the Office of Civil Defense said that most of the 18 people killed in Sarangani province died as a result of this landslide. Officials said other deaths were reported in the southern provinces of South Cotabato and Davao Occidental, as well as on Balut Island, just off Mindanao's southeastern coast. Initial assessments from the government found that around 2,000 houses and 117 government buildings and facilities were damaged across several provinces. General Santos's international airport remained shut, forcing the cancellation of 63 domestic flights, except for those bringing in humanitarian assistance. The quake had struck on the first day back at school after 2 months of summer holidays. Many of the injured were young students. Authorities said that around 6,000 public school buildings required checks before they could reopen, since buildings that sustained cracks could be at risk from aftershocks. We cannot force the immediate reopening of schools because we have to ensure the integrity of buildings, Alejandro said. The U.S. Geological Survey on Tuesday tracked more than a dozen aftershocks in the area of Monday's quake, several of them above magnitude 5 in their own right. They were even more frequent and larger in the immediate aftermath of the quake on Monday. The Philippines is often hit by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions due to its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of seismic faults around the ocean. Monday's quake was the largest on record in 50 years, according to Teresito Bacolcol, the director of the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. Movement in the same undersea Cotabato Trench triggered a magnitude 8.1 earthquake on August 17, 1976. Some 8,000 people died, many in much larger tsunamis of up to 8 or 10 meters that engulfed several coastal towns. A 1990 earthquake that also had a magnitude of 7.8 led to more than 1,000 deaths, thousands of injuries, and extensive damages in northern provinces and cities. Monday's quake sowed panic in otherwise sleepy parts of Mindanao. Mobile phone and CCTV cameras captured scenes of buildings crumbling to the ground and children screaming as the ground shook. Construction worker Ramel Pato was bringing his 3 children, aged 9, 12, and 13, to school in Polomalok town when the earthquake struck. When I was about to leave their school, I felt powerful shaking, Pato told the BBC. Children started running and crying. Pato recalled surviving a less powerful earthquake in 1998, when he was 7 years old. It's not the first time I experienced something like this. I know I should not panic so I can think clearly. Public school teacher Cesar Sundo, who lives in Labak town, said the earthquake felt like he was being vigorously rocked on a hammock for more than 2 minutes, and the shaking was getting stronger by the second. Everyone felt dizzy. Our students were shouting and crying and we needed to calm them down, and it was thousands of students. Sundo said the students, who were mostly 13-year-olds, stayed on school grounds until they were advised to go home. We were literally saved by our flag ceremony, he said, explaining that they were outside when the quake struck. Science minister and veteran seismologist Renato Solidum said many students survived because they were attending the morning assembly, which happens every Monday. They were lucky to be outside. They were able to stay put and sit down, Solidum told DZMM in a separate interview. These areas have experienced strong earthquakes before. This is one of the strongest. One viral video showed a branch of beloved fast food chain Jollibee in General Santos City collapsing as onlookers watched in horror. The chain issued a statement on Monday night saying all its staff in earthquake-hit areas are safe. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he had mobilized the entire government machinery to respond to the calamity. His transportation and health secretaries have flown to Mindanao from the capital, Manila, to oversee the response. Health Secretary Teodoro Herbosa said aftershocks, some of them quite strong, hit even as doctors treated the injured. Access to some towns, such as Jose Abad Santos in Davao Occidental on Mindanao's east side, remains difficult. Mayor Jason John Joyce told DZMM that landslides have buried his town's only highway, leaving half of it accessible by road. Relief goods have to be flown in to far-flung barangays, villages, he added. Meanwhile, 2 survivors had been pulled from the debris, but a third was found dead, officials said. Scanners have so far detected no signs of life from those remaining. It's difficult to accept as a mother that my son is still trapped there, said Dioslinda Deluvio, distraught as she waited outside the building for news of her son. My only call is to have him retrieved today so we can be at peace. At least 18 others died in Sarangani province, mostly in a landslide that buried houses in the mountainside town of Glan. Further deaths were reported in South Cotabato, Davao Occidental, and Balut Island. Some areas of Sarangani remain accessible only by helicopter, and fears of aftershocks were slowing rescue efforts. There are still aftershocks, so the rescuers are very cautious in their approach. That's a challenge, said Regional Civil Defense Chief Rodrigo Sosmena. East of General Santos, in the town of Melita, more than 100 students and a dozen teachers had gathered for a flag-raising ceremony at a school when the quake struck, on their first day back after a 2-month summer break. Their excitement on the first day of school turned to trauma, said school principal Rosabel Cachuela. Most students remained seated and still, preventing injuries, she added. About 2,000 houses and 117 government buildings were damaged across several provinces. The international airport in General Santos remained closed, forcing the cancellation of 63 domestic flights. Al Jazeera's Barnaby Lowe, reporting from the capital Manila, said it was a miracle that the death toll was not in the hundreds, given the extent of the damage. The focus right now is search and rescue, and search teams are racing against time. Of course, they're hoping they'd still be able to pull people who are trapped underneath the rubble alive, he said. Now, one of the biggest challenges is trying to reach mountainous areas that have been affected by the earthquake, because dozens of roads and bridges have also been damaged. The Public Works Department says its workers are working overtime to remove those roadblocks. And at the same time, government engineers are already inspecting buildings for their structural integrity, but it is a Herculean task, he added. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said emergency agencies had been activated. The national government is moving, and we will not leave Mindanao behind, he said. Randy Bakag, 23, said his mother. Amy Bagan Bakag, 42, was doing the laundry when the 7.8 earthquake shook the southern Philippines on Monday morning. She rushed out of her home at the foot of a mountain near the shore of their village on Balut Islands. Then, she remembered her granddaughter who was playing next door, Mr. Bakag said in an interview. As Miss Bakag turned back, rocks came crashing down the mountainside, he said, burying the houses beneath them. She was trapped under the rubble with her 6-year-old granddaughter, Tracia Dalaman, Trecia's 6-year-old cousin, Brian John Mangayao, and the children's 62-year-old great-grandmother, Pilar Singkag. More than 24 hours later, their bodies had yet to be recovered. Mr. Bakag believes all four are dead, but the family cannot not hold awake, bury their loved ones, or even begin mourning. I just hope we can still recover the corpses, even if it's only their bodies, Mr. Bakag said. His father, who was also running to safety, watched the disaster unfold and now seems like a different person. He said, "It's like something snapped in him." The quake damaged bridges, roads, government offices, markets, shops, and other buildings, including 5 schools, according to a local official, Rom del Catolico. Thousands of people fled to 44 evacuation centers, and some spent the night outdoors. Harold Cabreros, administrator of the Office of Civil Defense, said some are still afraid to stay indoors because of the frequent aftershocks.